Welcome to this video on integrating JIRA with System Center Service Manager 2012. I'm Mickey Gousset, a Principal Consultant Team Lead with Infront Consulting Group. Infront Consulting Group is a gold managed partner with Microsoft who specializes in System Center training and consulting on all the different System Center family of products. In today's video, we're going to look at a couple of different ways to integrate JIRA with System Center Service Manager 2012, specifically the change management system. The first scenario we're going to look at is basic JIRA integration. For this scenario, when a change request is created in Service Manager, we want to automatically update the associated issue in JIRA with the change request information, specifically the change request ID. And then when a change request is completed, we want to update that issue again, letting the issue know that the change request has been completed. So let's get to the demo. We're going to start out this demo by creating a new issue in JIRA. So here in the JIRA interface, I can click Create. Our issue will be created in our project. We're going to create, in this case, an issue of type task. We'll give our issue a name, and we'll call this Testing JIRA Integration. We'll keep the priority as medium, and for right now we'll leave the description blank, and we'll click Create. And you can see that issue TES-3 was created for us. So TES-3 is our current issue. And I can click this link to view the details of this particular issue. With the issue created, the next step is to create a new change request. In Service Manager, I'll go to the Service Manager console and I'll right-click on Change Management and I will say Create a Change Request. Now I need to select a template that I'm going to use, and a template simply defines the change management process that we're going to follow. So in this case, we'll just create a standard change request. We'll click OK. And this will open up the change request form where we can do things such as capture the title. So we'll leave the name standard change request and we'll say this is Testing JIRA Integration. And your change request can have things like a description, they can have a reason for the change. We can capture the area the change is related to. Maybe it's a hardware change, who the change request is assigned to, the priority of the change, the impact of the change, and the risk of the change. Now all the drop downs that you see are completely customizable and nestable. As you can see under the area, we can actually have multiple levels of values in these drop downs. We can also, as part of change management, you want to relate this back to the affected configuration item. So in this case, our affected configuration item may be this server, which is what we're wanting to update. But it may also be the fact that we want to update this server in a particular environment. So what I've done in Service Manager is I have an environment configuration item that I could also add as an affected configuration item. So now we can see that I'm updating this particular server in the production environment. And of course I've got a notes section where I can capture the notes related to my change request. Change requests have a planning tab where I can capture the scheduled start and end date. So that might be that this is scheduled to start tomorrow at midnight and scheduled to finish tomorrow at say 2 a.m. And I can capture things like the implementation plan, the risk assessment plan, the test plan, or the backout plan. If I have documents that I normally use for these types of things, I could attach those documents directly onto the change request, but there's no reason to do that if I want to also use these fields, because then I could actually include this information in email notifications. And then of course we have our activities, which is what outlines the actual process we're going to follow. And in this case we have a review activity followed by a manual activity. The review activity is just an approval step where someone needs to approve this. So I could say, let's add in an approver here. And then the manual activities may be a task actually implementing this particular change. So this change request has an approval step, and once it's approved, it needs to be implemented. And we have a place to capture our implementation results. And we have a related items tab where we can see how this change request is related to other work items and related to other configuration items or attachments, etc. And the history tab will of course track all the changes that are made to the change request. Now I'm integrating my change management with JIRA. So what I've done on the extensions tab is I've added a new field called the JIRA issue ID. So I can tie this change request back to a specific issue in JIRA. So what I can do is put the JIRA issue ID that we just created, TES-3, into the change request. And that's going to allow my workflows behind the scenes to then be able to update the JIRA issue with information from my change request. So I'm going to click OK to save this, and this is CR6060. And what we'll see is in just a moment that this will move from new to in progress. But what I've done behind the scenes is written a runbook in Orchestrator that watches for new change requests. So over here in Orchestrator I have this runbook, and you can see down here at the bottom that it's already started running. And what this runbook is doing is monitoring for a new change request. And when it finds that new change request, it's going to add a comment to the associated JIRA issue. So it's going to be able to take that JIRA issue ID that I put on the change request, pull up the change request, and be able to update that by adding a comment to it. And I'm able to do this without having to write any code, because I'm able to use the integration pack that works with JIRA, which then therefore allows me to access the JIRA REST APIs without having to actually be able to write code. So we can see that my runbook completed successfully. So now if we go back to JIRA and we do a refresh, you can see that a new comment was created, that a new change request was created. Here's the change request title. And we stored the change request ID in the description field of the issue. Now this is just a demo. For true integration, we would probably create its own field for storing the change request ID. But this is what allows us to be able to tie back and forth between JIRA and change management now. So I was able to create a new change request, and when that new change request was created, it automatically updated the issue in JIRA. And I could also build Orchestrator runbooks that watched for updates in JIRA that may be then updated back to the change request as needed. But what we're wanting to do is update the issue once the change request is created, and we're wanting to update the issue once the change request is completed. So now I can go back into Service Manager, and I can open this particular change request. And as I can see, the first activity, the review activity, has gone in progress. Now I can approve the review activity through email, through the self-service portal, or I can just come into the console and open up the activity and approve it from here. We'll click OK. We'll click OK. And because I approved the review activity, it's going to go completed, and therefore the manual activity in just a moment will also go completed. So if I go back into my change request, we can see that the manual activity, the review activity completed, so now the manual activity needs to be completed. So we'll mark this activity as being completed as well. So now we've actually implemented the change. And because there were all the activities completed successfully, what we will see is the change request will complete successfully. And this will now be a trigger for another runbook that I built to be able to update the issue to let it know that the change request that this issue was associated with has been completed. So you can see the change request has been completed. We can go to the Activities tab of the change request and we can see that each of the activities was completed successfully. And now if we go back over to Orchestrator to our second runbook, then you can see that my second runbook has just run and it completed successfully, which means if we now go to JIRA and do a refresh, we have now added a comment saying that the associated change request has been completed. So what we've demonstrated to you here is integration between JIRA issue tracking and change management in Service Manager. You could potentially build similar integration between JIRA Agile to be able to link user stories to change requests as well. As you just saw, we were able to integrate Service Manager and JIRA using Orchestrator. For the next scenario, we're going to use the same set of tools, but use a slightly more advanced integration concept. For this scenario, when a change request is created, we want to check the status of the associated JIRA issue. If that issue is not in progress, then we want to put the change request on hold. So if the issue was just created and it's in a to-do state, then the change request needs to be put on hold. Once the JIRA issue is updated and moved to an in-progress state, then we want to allow the change request to continue and move the change request to an in-progress state. Let's see how this might work. Let's start out by creating another issue in JIRA. So we'll click Create, and we'll call this Testing JIRA Integration with Status, because we're going to want to make sure that if this issue is in a to-do state, any change request associated with this issue needs to be put on hold until the JIRA issue goes in progress. So we're going to click Create, and this is going to create TES-4. And we can see that TES-4 in JIRA is currently in a to-do state. So if I associate a change request with this in its current state, I want that change request to automatically be put on hold. So if we go back over to Service Manager and I create a new change request, and we'll go with just a standard change request for now. And we'll call this Testing JIRA Integration with Status. And we'll set the area to be hardware, and we'll set the impact, the priority, and the impact, and the risk. On the Planning tab, we'll go ahead and set the scheduled start and end date to be Friday from midnight to 2 a.m. I can see on the Activities tab I have a review activity, so an approval step, followed by the manual activity, which is applying the change. And on the Extensions tab, it's where I can tie this back to my JIRA issue ID. So we'll put TES-4. and then I'm going to click OK. Now currently you'll see that this is in a new state, and because I've now submitted a new change request, I have an orchestrator runbook that's going to run, that's going to monitor for that new change request. And when a new change request comes in, it's going to get the issue that's associated with that change request. And if that issue is in a to-do state, meaning that it hasn't started yet, we're going to move my change request to be on hold. So you can see my runbook has started because I see another instance popping up. And it completed successfully. So if I go back into Service Manager and I do a refresh on my view, I can see that my current change request is on hold. So because my JIRA issue is currently in a to-do state, it put the change request associated with that issue on hold. If I go back into JIRA, and I click the Start Progress button, it then moves my JIRA issue into an in progress state. In Orchestrator, I have another runbook which is going to monitor for updates to JIRA issues. And anytime an update is found, it's going to then get the change request that's associated with that JIRA issue and update the change request. In this case, moving it back from on hold to in progress. And it ran really fast, but we can see that it did run successfully. It did update the change request. And if I go back over to Service Manager and do a refresh, then you'll see that my change request has now been moved from on hold to back to in progress. So what we've seen is the ability to tie a change request in Service Manager back to statuses in JIRA such that a change request will automatically be put on hold and not able to move forward until the issue in JIRA is moved into a particular state. Thank you for watching this video on integrating JIRA with System Center Service Manager 2012 using System Center Orchestrator 2012. For more information about this integration, or for more information about In-Front Consulting and what In-Front Consulting can do for you, please feel free to reach out to us at sales@infrontconsulting.com.